Hey guys, welcome to Let's Click Photography. Today I'm going to be doing a commission for a local sculpture artist. I'm going to be photographing some of their installed work here at a park in Greater Manchester. It's a nature trail. I've got 8 sculptures in total to photograph, and the artist wants them doing in a low-key fine art style. So we're going to be running through the techniques that I'm going to be using to capture these sculptures, which are all in situ, they're all in place, and they've all got stuff in and about them that I don't want to be in the photograph. So we're going to run through the how, the thought process, the gear that I'm using, and the why, and deliver this commission. I've not got long, so let's get straight into it. Now, the reason why I say I've not got long is because of course she's an artist, and that means that she doesn't have a huge budget for these images. So in with a constraint on time, because of that, I'm also reducing the gear that I use. I'm using as much as a basic camera as I have. This is the Canon 760D, and I'm coupling with that with the Canon 18-55, the shittest lens I have ever used, but it can still do the job. One speed light, which I'm going to be using off camera, so I've got my cold shoe arm on there as well, just to help me reach about. I'm of course going to need a trigger for the camera to trigger this speed light. I've got a little box of tricks that I'll show you as we go through. I'm doing 8 sculptures separately as portraits, but also collectively as like a banner picture as well. So on the 18-55 that I've got on this, and I'm going to set that all the way to 55. I'm just going to keep it for that for all of the portraits. Although relationships between our subject and the background isn't going to matter, as you're going to see, I just want to make sure that everything kind of looks the same as we go around. Now, these sculptures are all pretty similar in height, even though they've all got a different design on them. So in terms of my composition, I'm going to be composing the shot pretty much the same. I just want the sculpture in the middle of my frame. I'm going to take a test shot. Now, as you can see in this image, where you see everything in the background, this really isn't the shot that I want to go for. F16, I'm at ISO 100, and that was 13 seconds. By introducing this speed light, I'm going to be able to alter those settings and bring my shutter duration down to 1/160th of a second. And if I take that shot on the camera now without any speed light, it's completely black, and that's perfect because that's exactly what I want. I'm going to introduce light onto the subject, but I'm going to use something called the inverse square law to make sure that that light doesn't hit anything in the background. So let's quickly recap what we've done there. I've set my lens to 55mm. That's going to remain the same throughout the shoot, and that will mean that it will render the subjects in the same manner. I've got my camera set onto manual mode, aperture set to f16. I'm going to be working at ISO 200 throughout the shoot, and my shutter speed will be at 1/160th, and the reasoning behind those settings is to ensure that I remove the ambient light from the exposure. I want to control the light using my speed light. I'll also mention that I've set the white balance for consistency. Now, the 760D doesn't have a custom white balance mode, so I've used the flash white balance. So I'm just going to do a couple of test shots and find out what power I need to come out of the speed light unit, and then it should be pretty swift after that. And that was actually pretty good. So that's at 1/8 power on this speed light. So the flash power setting, what I'm looking for is to get the type of light that I want, and I'm going to mention the inverse square law in a little while, without getting any hot spots. I want to reduce those hot spots, so just getting that power balance just right for where I'm going to be holding the flash. I'm also doing a few different shots with the flash in different places for each subject, just to give myself some options later on in post. I've attached this green filter and that gives a green tinge to the light. I was just doing that to add that little bit of antique vibe, that woodland vibe. Now when I do have the subject and it's going to be in and amongst other things like branches and trees, etc., that's why I've got my little kit of tricks, some light modifiers from Godox, the Godox AK R1 kit. You can find a link for this kit and the magnetic round head converter. Godox do everything with round heads, so in order to attach these magnetized accessories that, I need to convert my speed light into a round head. That's what that does. These are pretty cheap actually. It's about a tenner. This little box of kit, it's got loads of good stuff in it. This is about 45 quid. So what's the inverse square law? Well, the inverse square law tells us how light acts over distance. If we have our light a certain point away from our subject, from let's say here to here, which is a hand's length, if I double that hand's length to about here, I'm actually reducing the light that hits the surface by 75%. And that's 2 stops. Reduce the light by 50%, that's halving the light. Halve that amount of light again, which is 25%, so 75%, that's 2 stops of light. And knowing this, you can use to your advantage, because what that means today is that if I hold my flash unit, my speed light, quite close to my subject, reduce the power coming out of the speed light here to here, by the time I get to here with the light is decreased by 2 stops and therefore is insignificant. And that means that anything that's behind and around the subject will be in darkness, and that's exactly the look that I'm going for. The other part of the inverse square law is that as you move further away, you double the spread of light. So as we are quite close there, we get quite a thin band of light coming out of the flash unit. As we double that length, we now get a wider spread, and that again is why I'm holding it quite close to reduce that light spill. Now, as you can see with this bee sculpture here, this is buried quite deep into the hedgerow. When I use my speed light to light this, I'm going to light the bee and everything around it. As I hold it here, I want to light this. I don't want to light down here, and I don't want to light any of this. So if we've got our power set, now I just need to try and work on the spill, and that's where my little kit is going to come in. I'm going to use one of 2 of the modifiers in here. I want to direct the light, I want to avoid overspilling the light. So I think that the first thing that I will try will be this honeycomb filter, and it's going to direct the light straight, so it's going to stop the spill. It's going to give me a more direct light, and by adding that onto the front like so, and that's how quickly and easily these things go on, I'm going to stop the light spreading as soon as it comes out and keep it more direct as to where I'm pointing it. Although that's nice by itself, I think I can do a little bit better. So I'm going to get rid of the honeycomb grid, and I'm going to swap that out and add a snoot into the equation. And what a snoot does is it directs the light even more. It narrows the band of light that's coming out of the speed light, out of the flash, and by narrowing it down at source, it spreads less as it goes further. As you'll remember at the beginning of this video, I mentioned that this lens is not one of my favourites. It isn't the best at focusing, certainly not in low light conditions, and I'm going into some undergrowth here, under trees, and there is low light there. So for the duration of this shoot, I've been shooting with manual focus, finding focus myself. You can of course autofocus and then just switch it over to manual focus, so you lock that focus in for the duration of the shoot. And talking about the shoot, Well, it's done, so let's take a look at those images.